I can say. When I look up in the darkest night, then I know everything is gonna be alright.
You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live. And in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of foods. With singing lips my mouth will praise you. On my bed I will remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night. Because you are my help, I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. Those who want to kill me will be destroyed. They will go down to the depths of the earth. They will be given over to the sword and become food for jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear by God will glory in him, while the mouths of liars will be silenced. So this is the third sermon in a four-part series I am calling Storytelling. A look at how our stories intersect with the story. This morning, I hope you will consider three stories for your edification and for God's glorification. Stories of people seeking God's presence. The first two stories are a contrast, if you will, of two people caught in their own personal wilderness. One languishing in a spiritual wilderness that threatens the soul as the body is wasting away. The other caught in a physical wilderness that threatens to destroy the body, but not the soul. The old man sat in his rocker day after day. Fixed in his chair, he promised not to remove himself from that spot until he saw God. One fine spring afternoon, the old man, rocking in his chair, relentless in his visual quest for God, saw a young girl playing across the street. The little girl's ball rolled into the old man's yard. She ran to pick it up, and as she bent down to reach for the ball, she looked at the old man and said, "Mr. Old Man, I see you every day rocking and rocking in your chair and staring off into nothing. What are you looking at? What are you looking for?" "Oh, my dear child, you're too young to understand." "Maybe," replied the young girl, "but my mama always told me if I had something in my heart, I should talk about it. She says to get a better understanding. My mama always says, 'Elizabeth, share your thoughts. Share, share, share,' my mama always says." Well, Elizabeth, child, I don't think you can help me." "Possibly not, Mr. Old Man, sir, but maybe I can help by just listening." "All right, Elizabeth, I'm looking for God." With all due respect, Mr. Old Man, sir, you rock back and forth in that chair day after day in search of God?" "Well, yeah. I need to believe before my death that there's a God. I need a sign, and I have yet to see one." "A sign, sir? A sign?" said Elizabeth, now quite confused by the old man's words. "Mr. Old Man, sir, God gives you a sign when you breathe your next breath, when you smell fresh flowers, when you can hear the birds sing, when all the babies are born. Sir, God gives you a sign when you laugh and when you cry, when you feel the tears roll down from your eyes. It is a sign in your heart to hug and to love. God gives you a sign in the wind and in the rainbows and the change in the seasons. All the signs are there. Don't you believe them? Mr. Old Man, sir, God is in you, and God is in me. There is no searching because God is just here all the time. With one hand on her hip and the other flailing about the air, Elizabeth continued, Mama says, Elizabeth, if you are searching for something monumental, you have closed your eyes because to see God is to see simple things. To see God is to see life in all things. That's what Mama says. Elizabeth, child, you know a lot about God, but it's not quite enough for me. Elizabeth walked up to the old man and placed her young hands over his heart and spoke softly in his ear. Sir, it comes from in here, not out there, she said, pointing to the sky. Find it in your heart. Then, Mr. Old Man, you will see the signs. Elizabeth, walking back across the street, turned to the old man and smiled. As she bent down to smell the flowers, she shouted, Mom always says, Elizabeth, if you're looking for something monumental, you have closed your eyes. Without an experience of God, the old man was lost in the wilderness, even as he sat on his own front porch. The second story is of King David, who has chosen to flee to the desert rather than fight his son for control of Israel. In the midst of the danger of the desert, filled, I'm sure, with feelings of remorse at the breakdown of his relationship with his son, struggling with the loss of power and prestige, questioning his own leadership, David writes a psalm of praise to God. O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. Earnestly. The Hebrew word shakar literally means to seek early in the morning. From the very first thing in the morning until lying on his bed into the night, David sought God's presence for strength. David was able to seek God's presence because he had experienced God in the Kodesh, in the sanctuary. He had experienced God's love in the holy place and knew that God's love is better than life itself. For David, it was not a question of if God exists. For David, it was because he knew God exists that he was able to survive his wilderness experience. The power of Psalm 63 is reflected in the fact that it was prescribed for daily public prayers by the early church. Its structure is suggestive of the journey that we're on. The initial expression of longing, the thirst for the holy, the sense of being in the wilderness gives way to a remembering of what God has done, God is doing. And it's an expectation of joy. Two stories of seeking God's presence. One in which a man has lost out on the beauty of life because he never realized the presence of God. And the other in which a man has experienced God so completely in the place of holiness that he knows God's reality is everywhere and always. There's a third story waiting to be told. Another story of one who is earnestly seeking the presence of the Holy One in the wilderness. It's your story. I'm suggesting this morning that how you survive the times of wilderness are directly related to your perception of God. Have you already experienced God in the Kodesh, in the holy place, in the sanctuary? Have you sought God for strength? Do you seek God for strength wherever you are because you know that God is? Do you seek God because without God your soul is parched? Then praise God because you know what God's love is all about. You know that God's love is what gives us life. If, however, you have so far only experienced a void while in that wilderness journey, take heart. Take heart and look around you. Here is the sign you've been waiting for. In the nuance of relationship, in the midst of this Kodesh, this holy place, God is. God is, and you are invited to experience God's soul-satisfying love. Gain strength from each other. Gain strength from the Holy One. Gain strength to celebrate any circumstance of life you are immersed in. Just a thought.